going on, everyone? Welcome into A to Z Sports, wrapping up day 4 of Titans training camp. Should be the last day we see them for a little bit, not in pads. With league rules, they get to ramp up to that on Monday. But as you see in the title, A.J. Brown took the podium today, and he didn't just put his teammates on notice, he put the rest of the league on notice. And I'm here with Teron Davenport of ESPN to break it all down. I, of course, am Luke Worsham of A to Z Sports. TD, let's start with the things A.J. Brown had to say, because he was really a quote machine when he was up there at the podium today. What stood out the most to you from what A.J. had to say?
Well, bigger than anything that he had to say was just his aura, his vibe.
Oh, yeah.
And you're seeing that throughout practice, and there's a different confidence and comfort level. And it's just like anything. The more you do something, the more you're in a certain environment, the more comfortable you're going to be, and then your personality is really going to show. So that's what you're seeing. So when you hear him say that he feels confident because he could do whatever he wants to do, whenever he wants to do it, that's why. And it was something that he actually said on the field to one of the DBs. And you're seeing him play. I think today was the only incompletion that he's had. You know, the connection between he and Tannehill is obviously there. So when you look at the quotes, I mean, I love that he spoke about being leaner. And that's something that we're seeing as far as in and out of the breaks and those type of things at the top of the route. The excitement that he has, the genuine excitement that he has to have Julio Jones there. And this is one of those things, right? When you have somebody that you've always watched actually here, it pushes you. I don't care how good you are. You're going to be pushed because it's just like you have one of your quote-unquote idols there watching you every day. So it's I'm not going to say a different guy that we're seeing, but you're seeing
improved,
just
certainly.
Him, the true A.J. Brown. That's what you're seeing.
And I like that you said the true A.J. Brown, because if you think about it, this is really the first time we've seen him have a normal training camp.
Yeah.
Because his rookie year, he was plagued by injuries. Last year was the COVID year, so everything was kind of weird. So we've never had, the A.J. Brown dominating in practice videos to post, at the end of practice. He looks like a different guy. You mentioned that he's leaner, and he got asked about facing off against the Titans' new sort of core of defensive backs. Yeah. And he said, easy work. Yeah. And we're getting used to seeing that from him. And I'm curious what you think when the season starts and we evaluate A.J. Brown in this sort of new Titans offense, this new era with Julio Jones. What is the expectation for him? What is the next step for A.J. Brown?
Well, I'll say this. After his rookie year, I said that he was the best yards after catch receiver in the league. He is that. So you already have that. But I think for him as a top 10 receiver right now, I think the next step is to elevate into top 5. Now, he's not going to be concerned about that. He obviously feels that whatever he does on the field is going to speak for itself. But for us, that we look at those different things, I think that's where he needs to go, and that's where he will go. Why? Because you're seeing improvement as far as route running. You're seeing more consistency catching the football.
Yeah.
And, again, he's leaner, so he's a bit harder to cover now. And that's something that he didn't always have with him, whereas you would see him match up with some of the corners. You look at the Patriots game with Stephon Gilmore, those type of things. He's now built to go against top cover guys, and they're going to face plenty of them this year.
Something else that was interesting, I thought A.J. said, is he got asked about the criticism around sort of the national media of Ryan Tannehill as just being the guy who gives the ball to Derrick Henry. And I loved it. He shook his head and he said, Derrick doesn't get the ball every play. That's stupid.
Right.
And I think people are starting to figure that out across the league, that Ryan Tannehill is more than just the guy who gives the ball to number 22 back there.
The other thing you have to look at is he mentioned how many times they've come back in 2-minute situations.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And that's something to talking to the guys. They love the way he's unwavering as far as when things are up, he's not high or, too excited. And when things are facing, when they're facing adversity, he's still the same. And that's what you see. So that's something else, as far as the leadership perspective that A.J. Brown touched on. He also said another key thing. He tells us where we need to be, and if we get there, we get rewarded.
Yeah.
And that is something else that Rob Moore has spoke about, just as far as saying that Tannehill doesn't see any numbers, right? He sees the open man. So that's going to bode well for this offense that has so many weapons. Ferkser, Josh Reynolds, Julio Jones, all of these guys, A.J. Brown as well.
I want to get your thoughts on camp in general over the first 4 days in just a second. But first, you brought up Rob Moore, and I want to ask you this because I know that you'll certainly have an opinion about this. It seems to me like Mike Vrabel has put together a staff of position coaches that does something really unique. They elevate their players. You look at guys at every position, they're constantly getting better. You know, I was talking to Mike Herndon yesterday. Everybody loves Mike. And he says, you know, there used to be a time with the Titans where you would have a rookie come in here, they would start off playing well, and then they would either plateau and that would be it, or they would just start playing even worse than that. And now constantly over the last 4 years that Vrabel has been here, we see guys improve. And it's my opinion that comes down to guys like Rob Moore, like Tony Dews, like Todd Downing when he was a position coach, and the fact that he's put together a staff that elevates the players.
Also like Keith Carter. Because
the
best example of that is Nate Davis. And all of you Titans fans, Jarrett Stillman, you two, that were calling for his job, each of you owe that man an apology because he is actually one of their best position coaches. And you're seeing it already with Dylan Radins, who's moving all over the offensive line. So back to Rob Moore, absolutely. And that's one of the things I asked Julio Jones about, just as far as what he's getting from that and the importance of having a guy that has been there and done that. There's a difference because you can relate to a player when you've actually been in a situation where you're asking him to perform.
What are some of your biggest takeaways from the first 4 days?
Breon Borders.
Yeah.
It starts with him. He's competing on each and every rep, and whether it be one-on-ones, team period, 7-on-7, 3 interceptions, he robbed each one of the quarterbacks. He's gotten each one of them. So that's a standout. I think today, just the energy that the defense had, that's something that was really obvious.
You know, at one point I heard Kevin Byard yell out after they had made a couple of nice plays in a row. He said, "This is our period." Yeah. And that was the attitude the whole unit had all day.
And it just goes to show the importance of having those guys in there, right? Kevin Byard, Jeffrey Simmons, Nico Autry, they weren't out there yesterday.
And you could notice beyond just the talent.
It was flat. So those things that stood out. And obviously A.J. Brown, what he's been able to do, he's been basically unstoppable. Like I said, it was one incompletion, and it was just slightly overthrown. So that, and I'm not saying one incompletion today. I'm talking about one incompletion this whole week. So that's something to point out. Some of the younger receivers, Chester Rogers, not younger, but the back-end receivers, Chester Rogers, Marcus Johnson, those guys have stood out. Des Patrick surfaced today as well. So those are some of the things. Tierre Tart as well.
Oh, yeah. Pop-Tart.
Yeah, Pop-Tart. That's right. Even though they're not in pads, you're still seeing him show the footwork. He told me yesterday that he's played basketball since he was 7 years old, from 7 years old to high school, and that's where he gets the footwork from.
Which rookie has stood out the most to you so far?
I think it's pretty obvious. Racey McMath has stood out the most.
The future Julio Jones, according to A.J. Brown.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about all that, but he's definitely doing a really good job catching the football.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the knock on him was drops, and you're not seeing that, right?
Nope.
Because he's consistently and he's using that size to go up and high point the football. That's been impressive for me.
And just about every person that has been asked about him, from Vrabel to Todd Downing to teammates, their eyes light up. They're like, oh, that guy's so much fun to work with. He's so much fun to coach.
Right. And it's a plus because as a coach, when you have a guy who has all of the athleticism, but he also has that humility and that thirst to learn, it's a blessing for you. So that's why they're so happy about it.
Well, hey, we will be not here tomorrow. The Titans are off tomorrow. They'll be back on Monday. They will be allowed by league rules to put the pads on. It will remain to be seen whether they actually do that, but we will be here with all of the coverage. You can follow us just about everywhere, including TikTok now, at A to Z Sports. That's Teron Davenport. I'm Luke Worsham. Thank you for joining us very much. Have a great Sunday off, and we will see you back here on Monday.